My name is Risa Minikin, and I'm going to be your host today. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I have a private practice in Ridgefield, Connecticut. If you want to know more about me, you could go to my website, and I'm supposed to say this very slowly, rmridgefieldtherapy.com. I'm so excited for our next guest. Okay, Kelley Hopkins-Alvarez is a licensed professional counselor. She's also a board certified coach and a certified sex therapist. And that's right, today is all about sex, okay? Haven't you ever wondered what goes on in sex therapy? I have. This is so interesting. So today we get a chance to ask Kelley all these kind of questions that we would want to know. And I think also she's going to help us understand that in speaking about sex is also another pathway to healing. So please help me welcome Kelley Hopkins-Alvarez. Hi.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being here. I can't tell you, I've been so excited to talk to you. And especially, and I know I should add, is that Kelley actually does multiple things. She specializes in couples therapy, and she's been a big advocate in the educational system, creating different programs to help support our kids. So we can go on and on, but I want to get to the good stuff. So anyway, I have a million questions for you.
I see.
I know. I can barely read them though. But anyway, I thought we would start with, what are some of the issues that you see, in sex therapy, in that treatment?
Sure.
What kind of issues?
It would either be individuals coming in to see me, so maybe they would be coming in to talk about issues within their relationship, and maybe their partner doesn't want to attend with them, so they're coming to work on things by themselves, or I would see partners coming in. The main issue, as you can imagine, is desire. So there's either a client coming in who has a higher desire and they have needs that are not being met in the relationship, and there's resentment that's built over time, or there's a client coming in that has a lower desire. But if you look at the spectrum of sex therapy, it's so much larger than that. Really vast in terms of what we do.
I know. Well, when we were preparing for the interview and we started talking, I kind of, for some reason, was thinking we'd be talking a lot about couples. But at the same time, like you said, a lot of people, individually need support, and especially how, about maybe how they define themselves sexually, what their sexual orientation is, and it goes much deeper, than sex is a much deeper.
It is, and sometimes I'm working with the parents of a young adult, Risa, who've come in to talk about the fact that their child is questioning their gender. Their adult child is questioning their gender, and/or is getting is transitioning genders, is actually in the process of going to the doctor, doing the pre-op, getting their surgery, and we're talking about the emotions, just the use of pronouns.
Right.
The pronoun
100%.
Changes for a parent to try to change the sensors in the brain on which pronoun, and the pronoun quite often is they.
Yes, can you explain that?
Well, first of all, here's something you need to know about sex therapy. It is constantly changing. So every time you learn a term or a phrase, you can't get too attached to it, because when you do, it's already shifted. So they is just sort of representing how a person feels about themselves. So the key to being a good sex therapist is to really ask your client, what do they identify with? What feels right for them? And that could be fluid. That could be something that's not static, and that's also something that's hard for the partners of someone that might be dealing with gender issues and/or sexuality issues. But the field of sex therapy is so much more than even this. It's for instance someone who's just underwent cancer treatment. And now their body is healing. They could have had a surgery, and now their body has changed. There could have been the loss of a child. And couples are coming in to talk about how to even feel good. How to even want pleasure or feel like they are worthy of pleasure after losing their child.
I know. Wow.
So it's tremendous.
It truly is, and quite honestly, when I was preparing for the interview, I really was thinking about how important it is and how much it is a part of who we are, and that, I'm just thinking of a particular client that I had who, he's in his 50s and he grew up in a culture where it was like sex was a bad thing. It was something to be ashamed of. That's disgusting. Do you know what I'm saying? Terrible. And many people come from that kind of place. And so he was like, he'll start talking like, oh, well, I noticed somebody, had a manicure and I thought that was pretty. You know what I mean? But then he'd start shaming himself about it.
Right.
Yes. You know what I mean?
I hear that a lot.
Yes, there's a lot of shame about it.
People will cite sometimes their religion, like I grew up in this religion, and they'll say it once, twice, 3 times in a session. I'll just note that.
Right.
And then at some point in the session, I'll just mirror that back to them in a respectful way and just say, I notice you mentioned, I'm a, like several times, tell me more what that means.
Right.
And I'll learn a lot.
Yeah.
My goal in this is to figure out what their sexual belief system is. Right. And most people look at me like, what are you talking about? What does that even mean?
Well, it is very broad now. You know what I mean? In terms of and I think it's a great thing that we have become so much more open into ways of which people express their, sexuality, their affection, their romantic feelings, and then also about themselves. But it's so much more deeper than that in a lot of ways.
Yes.
A lot of ways,
I agree.
Yeah.
So going deep, it's interesting, as you know, we're both therapists. One of my largest challenges, especially as a couples and sex therapist, is to see the client's comfort level.
Right.
And to see if I'm getting the signal, the clear signal that we're going deeper. And sometimes people will ask me what I do at a party, and they'll go ha ha, and then when I really describe,
does it make people kind of a little?
I don't know. People haven't told me, but once I actually described what a professional organization that I've been certified from, and the code of ethics and conduct, and there is no sex happening in the session. Right. That's important, guys.
You're not. There's a different title for that. There is. That's definitely not you.
Definitely not. So that's a whole piece of just the general public understanding.
Right.
It's a blend of sex education. We're as general therapists, we are doing a lot of psychoeducation with clients.
Yeah.
So there's a blend of sex education, things that people don't even know about arousal and desire, and how stress impacts us.
Can you speak on that, about arousal and kind of how much, break it down a little bit.
I will. And luckily I have Dr. Emily Nagoski's work. Okay. She wrote the book Come As You Are, and I've taken a training class with her. She's amazing. Mm-hmm. She has wonderful, wonderful TED Talks. So going on YouTube, looking up Dr. Emily Nagoski, you'll see some of what I'm mentioning. Yeah. She talks about a big part of our sexual system is we have sort of off buttons for sex and on buttons.
Right.
And being able to connect with your desire and feelings for your partner, or partners, I should say, requires us shutting off the off buttons and turning on the on buttons.
Correct.
And stress, when we feel stressed, when we feel overwhelmed, any sort of stimulation can be, that's just too much. I'm too tired. Mm-hmm. I'd rather just veg on the couch. Right. So clients are very interested in that when they learn, why am I avoiding intimacy and connection with my partner or partners? I look at their stress level, and sometimes the brain can sense any sort of stimulation, even if it's positive, and block it as if it's a negative.
Right.
That's the education. People are like, and I'm lucky that I can back it up with Dr. Nagoski's work and research.
Exactly, and I think that must happen a lot for couples.
It does.
Do you know what I was thinking that what other people would want me to ask is that I always hear the conversation, what is considered a happy sex life? And they
Love
always
that
do that. It's like, well, if it's 2 times a week or 3 times a week, whatever it is, or whatever, then you're good.
Yes.
But you know what I mean? And it's, I just don't think it's that black and white. But what is
love the question.
Yeah.
It's something that people want to feel typical. They want to feel normal.
Right.
What is normal?
What is normal?
Well, first of all, we look at what level of pleasure are you experiencing with your partner or partners during your sexual time. And also, it's not the frequency, it's the quality of the time that you have with your partner. That's what we as sex therapists really want to get across. It's about being embodied, being connected to yourself, being present, accepting your body, which is a big topic.
Huge.
So it's not about quantity.
Right.
It's not about that at all. It's about how did you feel when you were together?
Right. And what would you say that goal would be for that couple?
Well, the magic goal is never really met because we have, with partners, we have different arousal and desires. I never have partners who have equal level of arousal and desire, so there's always a discrepancy.
That makes sense.
There's always someone that feels like you want it too much and you don't want it enough. So it's creating, just like with typical couples therapy, and remember Gottman couples therapy, I'll never forget learning 70% of all couples have discrepancies we can't resolve.
Right.
That was pretty eye-opening.
Yeah, I know.
What do we do?
Especially I'm thinking as a therapist, because I do always feel like solution.
Yes. And Gottman couples therapy would tell us that we are to create a conversation and get that couple talking about their differences, communicating around the differences. And that's powerful for people.
How difficult do you find it for some people to really be able to communicate what their sexual needs and desires are?
Oh my gosh.
I mean, because it's strange. We do talk about sex a lot in the media, but in reality, when it comes down to it, I think that's a very difficult thing.
I think that it's a spectrum. I have people who come in and within 2 minutes, they're so comfortable that I actually have to check and say, how are you doing? Because I'm a little thrown off by how comfortable they are, and I just want to make sure that I'm reading the room correctly. And then I have some people who, either because of trauma or shame, as you mentioned, I really have to make sure I'm right next to where my client is, not ahead of them or behind. So there are some people that we have to go very slowly. We have to use words that they have a safe feeling with, and I have to really get to know, and I have to keep checking on the goals of why they're here, what they want. So that, just as in our basic training as therapists, it's all about our clients' goals. So quite often I will open up the intake sheet, the form that they fill out when they come in, and I'll just reread, their goals for therapy, and I'll keep using that as sort of an assessment.
It is really interesting. I've got to ask you though, as a therapist, have you ever been in a situation where you're uncomfortable or you don't know what to do?
Yes.
You're in this, you're in this world of, I'm assuming you could be talking about multiple things that, maybe you don't do or you're not, or whatever.
I think if we are therapists that are very somatic, like we're connected to our bodies, we would have to be. I think people who, I hope there's no one out there practicing who isn't connected to their body. So it's sort of like natural that if there's a topic that's uncomfortable, we're going to get that countertransference. And I remember taking a workshop a long time ago as a student, and they talked about how important countertransference was and is. So if we're feeling that feeling, sometimes we can experience how their partner is feeling. So I guess that feeling, away, as you know, as we were prepping for this, you were talking to me about your running, you like to run. We have to have self-care to help us with hearing things that may be uncomfortable. And in this sex therapy world, that might have been a trauma that happened to someone. And it might have been when they were really young, and it could have been with someone that they really trusted. So that's part of our sex therapy world is listening to trauma and helping people experience post-traumatic growth.
And how, is there a specific technique with that?
Oh, it's vast. I feel like
It's kind of
I'm very eclectic.
Yeah, me too.
And I think that's why we have a lot of good conversations.
Yes, definitely.
I would say the main trauma tool that I use is helping a client at their pace and their direction go into the trauma and re-experience it in a different way with different levels of control that they're feeling,
so
and then
sort of
come back out.
Like by them going through it, somewhat desensitizing it, and maybe kind of putting in a new positive framework, or there's something to be gained from that awful situation.
And I can't take credit for that. That the author Babette Rothschild, I think it's The Body Remembers, if I'm correct, if that is the title of her book.
Right.
But I specifically remember when we bring clients in to talk about sexual trauma, we bring them back out, and they sort of have an anchor. They've chosen an anchor to think of maybe a beautiful moment with someone that was there for them and that was a trusting individual.
Exactly.
So we sort of titrate it.
Exactly.
And then they notice, oh, this is different.
Right.
But again, always at the client's discretion, always at their pace.
Right.
We don't have to know details. We don't have to know chronology. That's not for us. It's all if our client wants us to know that. So I try to always be very mindful of that.
What have you noticed with this work? Because I don't think that people would necessarily think of sex and having to work through whatever is their sexual, goals or something like that, thoughts, things, that they would think that that would be an actual path towards their healing. But the more and more that I've been, getting to it. So my question is like, how do you see, how talking about whatever it is they need to talk about in terms of freeing themselves with these sexual thoughts, whatever's going on, is healing? Because it truly is a very healing process.
And sometimes the educator in us helps clients understand and sort of give structure to what they're doing in sessions. So when we begin to describe as their thought partner, which is really what a therapist is, one of the many things we are, we help them sort of structure what they're doing, and we give it a title, that it's healing, and then they begin to identify that as, oh, this is my healing. And sometimes they do a good portion of that healing with us. Sometimes they also will incorporate other wellness professionals. So I am very, very open to all of our wellness professionals, Reiki, massage, structural energetic therapists. I really believe that we can take our clients where we can take them, but there's additional healing that is waiting for them. And sometimes they're a little concerned, like, I don't want to go any place but here. This is my safe place. And so again, at their pace and their discretion, I see when it's time for them to add another level, because we know that there's healing energetically as well. There's healing with animals. You and I love to talk about animals. So there's that therapeutic release with animals. There's so many ways we can kind of be almost like the case manager, if you will, of healing. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. That's right, like what you were saying before we talked about how sometimes you will take walks, with your clients, or even like you bring your dog or they bring their dog.
So this is a great topic that you're getting to. So that a lot of our, if we're doing really deep work with a client, and I know that you're a big proponent of this, we sometimes need the safe cocoon of the office. If someone is deeply traumatized, that cocoon, that womb, if you will, is they need it.
Word for it.
Yes. But there are some clients who, again, as they begin to grow and change, they need to move their body.
Right.
They sometimes, when we're encountering something in a session, in a sex therapy standpoint, that hasn't been able to be resolved, getting out walking by moving your body just sets that piece free, and for them to.
Oh my gosh! Well, they say like in AA, move a muscle, change a thought.
Oh, I never heard that.
You never heard that? Oh,
I like it.
It's so good, and it's like many times, like when I'm feeling a little not wanting to do the self-care, I say that because I know, like once I move, it just changes your mood.
Yes, and music, which I think as therapists we don't use enough, or.
How do you use music in your?
I don't use it in my sessions yet, but I will sometimes have a client, I'll say, well, tell me what your theme song is.
Right.
Or I have sent a client a song with lyrics.
Yes, like me this morning.
Let's
talk about sex. I wanted to play it.
I thought we could open with that, honestly. Salt and Pepper, does everybody remember that?
I love that song.
And I can't take credit for that. One of my colleagues, Marianne Sieber, was doing a talk at Southern about 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And she played the song and she got up and we danced.
Oh my God, totally.
It was great.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Well, I'm sorry I interrupted you, but I think one thing I wanted to point out about therapy and your treatment is that like sometimes it is like more therapeutic to take a walk.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And to move, and you can actually have a session simultaneously. And I think that's a little bit different than the original paradigm that a lot of therapists are trained to be very clinical.
Yes.
Stay in the room. I mean, they know nothing about you.
Yes.
And
And isn't there a little bit of a power differential?
Yeah.
And again, sometimes people feel very comfortable with that.
Correct. That may be what they need in that moment.
Yes.
Sure.
And I just want to clarify that this is with individuals only. I have not taken couples, partners, I should say, out for walks. I think that's just too many moving parts.
Yeah, I agree.
And also, it's not with people that we haven't worked enough in session with. Right. So we definitely have to have a flow, like 100%. A vibe together.
I agree.
And I review with them the informed consent that should anyone recognize me or recognize you, I'm not introducing you as a client, you're not introducing me as a therapist. They can bring their dog.
Yes.
I don't bring my dog because it's about them and their comfort level and if that's something they need emotionally.
Right.
And I've gotten very good feedback on it. Sometimes people will mix it up. They'll do some individual office sessions, and then for a couple of weeks when the weather is good, they will do the outside sessions. And I get a lot of new clients who search the term like walk talk therapy. Oh. And they come and they say, can we do this? And I do tell them we have to meet a few times first.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's something that I have organically kind of done a similar thing with you, but I do agree that, it can be powerful. It needs to be in what, maybe in the room for certain sessions. Yeah. But there is room for other alternative ways, and I found them to be more powerful a lot. And sometimes when a client sees you more as a human, can almost be more powerful rather than this hierarchy or this power authority.
Yes.
I don't think that necessarily it needs to be there to make a connection and create change.
Yes. If a client is
depending on the situation.
Yes. If we can, with our assessment tools that we use as therapists, and we can sort of identify and assess that the clients are in a good position to be able to leave the office and they can manage their emotions, so there's no crisis going to escalate from their conversation, then yes, we can make that call and we can recommend to them another form of work that could, again, to use your wonderful phrases, lead them to more healing.
Right.
People love it.
I want you to just touch on a little bit, because I'm sure you work with clients who are, like you said, learning to figure out how do they identify themselves sexually, how do they identify their, orientation, all of these things. If you could speak on like how important it is for, family, friends, to kind of, understand that, because,
You mean to be supportive?
Yes.
So this is a journey for people. We know that in our society, those that do not have the family support are in the highest suicide rate.
Exactly.
So this is an excellent question. This is so timely.
Right.
And we know that our people who identify as being in the trans population have a higher rate at this time. So let's just give a message to all parents right now.
Exactly.
All parents, all guardians, all family members. Love is love.
I know.
Love is love. I think that is the most basic way I can address this.
I agree.
Love is love. And
I said the same thing yesterday.
We know from working with couples, it doesn't matter the gender.
No.
It doesn't. Everything is it's a relationship.
Exactly.
And it doesn't matter the gender, the sexuality, the non-binary. If someone does not identify as a gender, there's still very, very typical relational patterns. We see those patterns. We're trained to look for patterns that ensues. So why are we, unless a person feels like they need to identify with their gender, that's there. So my pronouns are she and her. Those are mine. And at a lot of conferences now, and especially national conferences, we see speakers introducing themselves that way. It's very progressive. I like it.
Yeah, I know. I think it's just so important to kind of bring that up, and that hoping that I'm getting signals over here. You're distracting me. But anyway, just open encouraging, people who are, have children that there's so many different identifications today. I don't even know them all. About how people identify, and I actually think that's really positive because we should be able to identify however we feel authentically to be.
Yes. Except in the cases of young children, they certainly need more guidance because sometimes they're just feeling a feeling in their body, or they're noticing like, I want that backpack, or I want to wear that headband, and then with parents, they're all of a sudden navigating this. Well, that's not for you. So I think basically, if it's not a young child, just asking the person, because everyone is a mosaic. Everyone is a mosaic. Isn't that amazing?
It is amazing. And everyone's their own only special mosaic.
And
you're the only one. You're the only mosaic that will ever exist.
I think that's why I love therapy.
Yeah.
Because I think with every client, we build a mosaic.
Right.
Their mosaic.
Exactly. Oh, that's so beautiful. Is there anything out of all the work that you've done in this vein, we're talking about specifically sex therapy, that you feel like you would want to share? Something that you feel like, out of all your experience, it's like, that you've learned and maybe want to share?
I think that as a therapist, we really have to be able to manage being in the presence of deep emotion. How do we manage when we're sitting with one or more people and they're at a point where they're crying from their gut, and we know that person has to leave our office, and maybe they don't have a support network, maybe they live alone, and I think one of the hardest things as a therapist is doing our own work to sort of disconnect as they transition from the session. And send them on their way with compassion, with hopefully some healing, and to let that go.
Yeah.
Isn't that hard?
It's such a sacred experience, and when I talk to you, I know that you just come from this beautifully intuitive place, and so it's just such a pleasure to talk to you, and you letting me know everything about what's going on. But we need to get your website out because we got to do it slowly. So
yes.
If you guys want to get in touch, with Kelley and learn more about what she does, your website is
KelleyHopkins-Alvarez.com. You should know that Kelley is spelled E-Y, so KelleyHopkins-Alvarez.com. I also have a YouTube channel as well.
And you do? I didn't know that.
I do.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I have a pretty active Facebook page as well, Kelley Hopkins-Alvarez Manifesting Positive Outcomes.
Yes.
So I like to put up materials for all to be inspired and to start the day off in a good way.
Well, listen, we could talk forever. Thank you so much.